Namaskar. Chinese spy balloon and the man you've been waiting for to know all about what has been happening for the first time. An enemy thing, whatever it is, space balloon, enemy aircraft, has actually reached the shores of the United States. And at the time of recording, it has just been shot down over the United States. And to know more about it, let's welcome our star, Elmer Yuan. Elmer, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel. How are you?
Thank you for inviting me. Sorry I missed you all. It's been a long time. We did a program last time from Narita Airport in Japan. Unfortunately, the
Yes.
Wi-Fi was horrible, and
Horrible.
Sari could
Yeah.
not do it. So I've been, there are so many things happening, especially with China in the last few weeks. And I'm very eager and anxious to report to you. I mean, it has everything to do with the world and also politics in Indo-Pacific.
Spy balloon has just been shot down. Blinken has
Yes,
postponed his visit. It could be even a cancer now that the balloon has been shot down. They said there was weight up to 3 bus loads inside the balloon. So this is a
yes.
new thing for America. Even when Pearl Harbor was attacked, it was still Hawaii, but several hours away, and they didn't feel real. This one, the threat feels real. Elmer, what's happening?
In fact, it's so real that even the kids in school are talking about it on this TikTok. So every news media has reported about it. Of course, all the talk has been very kind of nothing in depth, and because America never been threatened onshore, offshore in Hawaii, but never been onshore. So this is a very serious matter. In the beginning, of course, the military detected it. I'm sure they scanned it and feel it's not really that much of a threat to the safety of U.S. military and to the people. But psychologically, can you imagine somebody with a big knife, all right, walking in front of your door back and forth, even though you have the best gun in house? But your wife, your children, everybody gets scared, right? Today this is exactly what's happening, and this is right overhead. It's not a joke. So what really happened was these balloons were released probably a few weeks back, and there were many of them. All right, it's not only now so far they talk about three. All right, one
Three.
maybe three, yeah, three Canada, one, and one came through this to America, and then one in Latin America, and now they're reporting more, Philippines and so on and so forth. And this is probably there's no question, it is for military purpose. You don't need it for weather. So military purpose, they can observe the activity. For example, this one, they are on top of Montana. Not only the satellite can do the same thing, but they don't station long enough in one place to watch the activity, human activity, like for instance, 24 hours activity of a place. So this is very important when there is before a nuclear war, the people's activity changed, become abnormal, not very different from day to day. So as a result, they can detect it and be ready. And the US does the same thing exactly to China. All right. I'm sure they have listening post in India. And also I watched them. In fact, they have a listening post in Mongolia, in the nation of Mongolia, in South Gobi, only a few hundred miles away from Beijing. They have listening posts and watching posts all the time. This is normal. But this really came at the worst time when Anthony Blinken and also Yellen, Treasury Secretary Yellen, was on their way to China. It's absolutely on the wrong time. And on top of that, the military said, let's watch what happened to it. So they watched for almost a week. They've been tracing it for a week. They knew it was not much of a threat to US military or to US civilian. So they said, watch for a while. But this has a huge political cost to Biden, right? People said, of course, the Republican will attack first. You cannot protect the country. You are not capable to protect the country. Forget about 2024 re-election. I mean, it really is. It's not just a little bit of noise, huge amount of voice. And when the people see it, in fact, sometimes if from Montana, you can actually see it in the clear sky. So this is a threat. I mean, Americans have never been threatened like that before. So it has huge impact. It will have huge impact in the 2024 election, meaning that you guys cannot protect us. Protection does not only mean military, it's psychological, right? I mean, people are civilians. You have women and children and even adults. They're not used to being threatened. America feel they are the safest country in the world with all the military might. How could we be afraid of it? And they are when something is on top of your head. And it's a military. There's no question. How do you know it's not carrying some test tube of viruses? All right. How do we know? And there could be anything. It's a huge balloon. It can even carry some very miniaturized atomic weapons these days. It could be anything. So you can tell people that it's no threat, but nobody is going to believe it. and so as a result, I would say, Sri, you and I try to warn everybody, right, about the threat
Yes.
of the
Yes.
Chinese Communist Party. We just saved
Yes.
ourselves $100 million
Yes.
of advertising fees. What they have
Yes.
done, one balloon has basically, I would say, they have convinced at least 2/3 of Americans that the China is the clear and present danger.
One question for this. I beg your pardon. One follow-up question.
Yes.
There are some studies that have said that because America has been so busy supplying weaponry to Ukraine, that if it should get into a war, it has only 7 days worth of ammunition, and that right now America is cranking it up. Is that true?
They have given away a lot of ammunition, but the Ukraine war is an army war on land. And the Taiwanese, if there's a war in Taiwan, it's not going to be a land war, right? Because the Taiwan it's on sea and in the air. So far, the Ukraine war was basically a Second World War. It's like on land. So it's only the army and the weapon. It's only the army weapons, like this HIMARS,
right.
are just, in the old days, it's artillery. It's not, and US haven't even used their missiles yet.
Yes, yes.
They have not used their Navy. They have not used their Marine. I mean, they have so much stock. And Taiwan is quite well prepared. Japan is well prepared. US has base in Okinawa, in Guam, in Japan, and in Korea, and they are fully stocked. So on top of that, it's not really a land warfare. Before they land in Taiwan, they have to go through huge ocean. I believe it's not even going to be a war on the ocean, because of course China has never fought any war on the ocean, so they're very weak. On top of that, I believe it's going to be a lot of drone missiles, and maybe like what Elon Musk does, a lot of information warfare, maybe even cyber warfare, etc. It's a very different kind of war going to happen.
Well, we've seen some of these skirmishes, right? The Colonial Pipeline was taken down, and they said that was ransomware, and that the people are based in Russia. The FBI recovered a few. But you see, these are all people who are not going to state which country they are, representing, or which country gave them the go order to go and do these things. These are all outsourced these days. So there is a fair amount of uncertainty there. Now, let's take a quick look at, on the US-China front, what do you see is going to happen next? Will Blinken go back after a while, or now there's going to be some sort of a détente for some time? What do you feel?
I think he's not going back, at least for another two months, right? That's what the estimate is, because you look weak. US will look very weak to go back and talk. They have to show their anger. In fact, this is an act of war. I mean, this is not happening on the Pacific Ocean. This balloon came all the way into Montana and was keep trying. So this is not just in the old days, they normally have a spy plane flying on the so-called economic interest, in the sphere of interest. So they never really get into your border, go through your border. But this is not a simple thing. And there's so much political pressure. China have to say many, many apologies before US will go back. In fact, the visit was based on the request by by the Chinese Minister of Foreign Minister, Mr. Chen Gong, in US, and also by Yellen, inviting by Liu He. Yellen was invited by Liu He in Davos. So that was a really very warm invitation, and US had no reason to go. So suddenly they had this opportunity to negotiate. In fact, US was not very hopeful about this whole thing because, as you can see, all the semiconductor, military, the NATO, it's still been escalating. All these so-called containing China or isolating China has been escalating. So it's a little bit embarrassing to go and then to be nice. So in fact, they are very reluctant to go, and a lot of pressure from the Congress, especially the House of Representatives, against them going. There was a letter from written by several congressmen, including from both houses, warning Blinken not to give away too much, not to give away the store. So he's been very reluctant to go. So I would say this balloon has really killed the relationship. That's what I would put it. Kill the relationship.
Where did they bring the balloon down finally?
Oh, just now they just shot it. I believe it has traveled even further to inland. Some rumor, sorry, everything is hearsay. Some said they've even go to Charlotte. Charlotte is right north, right, Carolina. Some
Yes,
say
yes.
there's been good, but I'm not sure. That was a rumor, but I believe probably still above Montana. It was shut down.
Thank you so much. And now, what is the situation of COVID in China?
In fact, it's unbelievable. People are dying left and right and center. According to my calculation, I'm basing my calculation on Beijing. I do
Yes.
not have the information of the entire China because China is really too big. But Beijing is a very good estimate. I have lots of friends in Beijing. I live in Beijing for more than 10 years. And I have very high level friends. So far in Beijing, the population, Beijing has a official population of 20 million people. And they have some illegal people who come to work for doing some low paying jobs. So I would say between 20 to 30 million people. So far, about almost 2%, around 500,000 people just in Beijing have died. All right, every family I talk to, their elderly have died. I think last time, unfortunately, when I did a program with you in Narita Airport, I was telling you why in China it spread so fast and why so many people died compared with other countries. Let me first tell you, right now China is almost close to 80% infection. We couldn't understand, even India, all right, after 3 years, you have less than 50% infection. It's
Right,
not that
right,
many,
right,
right?
right.
In Hong Kong, we also have 3 years. Japan, we hardly reach 50%. How come within 3 months they can reach 70, 80%? Now, finally, I have a professor from MIT, came back from China. He was Chinese, all right? He went back to China for 2.5 months. He came back and he gave me the explanation. China, as you know, they burn a lot of coal, especially in the
Yes.
winter for heat, all right, for
Right,
winter.
right.
Huge amount of coal. And Chinese coal, we all knew, were not very clean. So
Yes.
what really result is the PM 2.5 floating in the air. You are as an engineer, you understand. This PM
Yes.
2.5 in China is so dense, and it floats. It does not sink or it goes to it kind of float hanging in the air. And the virus actually used the PM 2.5 and traveling. many elderly people never left home. They were at home. So somehow they were infected and they died at home because it's all over the place. It's in the air. So normally in our country, in the States or in India, people, if they are 6 feet apart, all right, no problem, right? You
No
have
problem.
to
Right.
you wash
Right.
your hand and then you do all kinds of things. But in China, it's airborne. The worst thing in infection is airborne. So the PM2.5 was acting as a vehicle or carrier, and then it became airborne. This is what happened. So within a matter of 3 months, in fact, all started really the outbreak started from October when they had the 20th Party Congress. They were hushing it up in the hospital. But let's say October to now, it's about 3 months. They have almost close to 80% of infection. And it's going very widespread because you cannot even, I think the political leaders, there were a few missing from time to time. In fact, they were infected because it's in the air. You cannot run away from it. The entire China and the more north, because they burn more coal, they have higher density of PM2.5. And the south a little bit better, but still, in fact, now this is the reason for the widespread of infection. Number two, why so many people died. Never in your country or in Hong Kong, it's a 0 point something. All right, it's of the infected. It's not much. But China, of course, infected the elderly. We have 250 million elderly people over 60 years old, and they were never vaccinated. This is number one reason. If you are vaccinated, especially the elderly people, even if you catch it, you have a resistance. Somehow it does not become a serious infection. It becomes a minor infection. This is number one reason. Number two reason is the Chinese over the centuries, we're talking about thousands of years ago, have always have some kind of respiratory disease. So, and it's like a slow, what do you call a pneumonia?
Yeah.
Very slow form of. That's why in China, historically, they always spit. And what it really, when you spit, means you have infection. This is like the pus. What is the word for it? You know, when you have an infection, you have a yellow pus. Pus. What do you call this?
Phlegm. Phlegm.
Yeah. Phlegm is what you spit out. But when you
Yes.
have when you have a infection here, it also has a yellow stuff coming out. What's that?
Oh, you mean psoriasis kind of thing? Psoriasis.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the same. When your lung is infected or your respiratory is infected, you have this kind of yellow stuff you have to spit all the time.
Right.
It's not big enough to kill you. But then when the virus hit you, all right, once you have an infection here, the virus is very easy to get into your bloodstream or into your cell. You lose that so-called, there is normally, we have a kind of a resistance here, some kind of a, what you call a liquid, internal liquid. But then if you're under infection, you are exposed. The doctors will call it's flesh. FL means it's easy to be contacted by bacterial or by virus. So as a result, they catch very fast. And then the immediate thing happened, the so-called pneumonia intensify. And then affects the lung. The lung, if you go to X-ray, this part with the liquid, it becomes white. Without the liquid, it's black on the X-ray film. So as a result, they don't have enough oxygen. All the elderly people have just enough oxygen to live through the day, hang on and on. The minute you lose 5 or 10% oxygen, you're dead. And the China, I mean, this is really very serious accusation on the communists. When they switched from zero tolerance to total open up, it was totally unprepared. The hospital capacity, there's this called oxygen machine. All right, you remember Donald Trump when he was directing this thing?
Yes.
He was getting the car company to build more oxygen machine because the first thing happened to you is you are short of oxygen. All right, because your lung is infected. So you need an oxygen machine to pump oxygen in to give you more oxygen so you can stay alive before they can treat you. They don't have anything ready. For China to make this machine, it's a piece of cake. All right, oxygen machines in China that they can produce. It's a simple pump. That's what it is. All right, China, the hospital don't have enough oxygen. There's no oxygen machine. So it's a joke. And the hospital immediately packed. All right, nobody even can enter the hospital. So the elderly people, every day in China, they don't take oral medicine. They like this dripping business. All right, when you go to a hospital, they sit around in the lobby, hospital lobby, and they give you what you call with the bottle and then
Intravenous.
the
Intravenous.
intravenous. They love intravenous because in the way they feel it is safer, goes directly in without going through a digestive system. So as a result, they don't go to hospital anymore because the hospital don't allow them to go in. So these elderly people felt hopeless. All right, no doctors, no hospital, no medicine. They cannot get any medicine because everything is overpacked. Well, because it happened all in 3 months. You are talking about 800 to 900 million people infected in a matter of 2 3 months. Can you imagine all the fever medicine, all right, lower fever, all kinds of flu medicine, all kind of painkillers, everything sold out because they were never prepared for it. It's kind of switched overnight. So all the hospitals, all the drugstores, totally sold out. So the elderly kind of some need their treatment for maybe something else, nothing to do with COVID, but they feel desperate and felt hopeless. People died. When they give up living, they die. Seriously. I mean, when they see no hope of going to hospital, they miss their doctors. They have become very dependent on medication. And when they have no medication, they feel bad and then they lose. We're talking about Beijing, over 2% people died. We are talking about 500,000 people died. And still continuing. It's not over yet. This is the first wave. This is the Omicron. The XBB has not even arrived in China yet. There's going to be second and the third wave. And worst thing happened is beginning of January, China has a huge migration problem because everybody go back to their hometown. And then to have a family together for the Chinese New Year, which was the 22nd of January. So within the January, everybody start rushing home. All right. And then when they go home, they spread the disease to the countryside, to all the farms. And the elderly are all in the farms taking care of their grandchildren. The Chinese labor actually came from the farmland. The strong and younger people came to the city to work, and they leave their fathers and the children in the countryside. And so the kids are taken care by their grandparents. And now, under Chinese New Year, before Chinese New Year, they all rush home to see their parents, to see their kids. This is why during Chinese New Year, over a few 100 million people have to travel by train. It happens every year. I mean, it's famous, right? So what happened is that COVID is being spread to the countryside. And in countryside, there is zero medication, zero hospitalization, no treatment at all. And nobody knows how many they died. So what happened is, if you die in countryside, they can't even afford cremation. I'm sure the same thing in India sometimes. They just dig a hole in the ground and then put the body.
What do Chinese do? Do you burn the cremate or do you bury?
In the old days, of course, my father's or my grandfather's generation, of course, cremation is the sin. So we always believe in the earth burial. All right. But now, roughly about 40% of Chinese are still buried. 60% are by cremation. And the number I got from Beijing, the cities, people always have cremation. All right. And in the countryside, because land is cheap, plenty of land, so they actually dig a grave and bury people. So the kind of death in Beijing is only cremation. And in some countryside outside the city, people can't afford it because they jacked up the price for cremation. All right. And they're now burning one body at a time. They're burning, not because the business is so good. They charge about $6,000 per burn. All right. And so they are putting in US dollars. So they're putting in 2 or 3 bodies at a time in order, because people have to wait. The waiting period is almost a month. So you can calculate how many. 90 uh, 90 ovens. Each oven, normal standard is half an hour per burn. Now they're speeding up to 20 minutes per burn. And in the old days, it's half an hour per body. Now it's 20 minutes per 2 to 3 bodies. So I mean, your people are very good with
So
math.
they're just stuffing the bodies into the oven and then
Exactly. And the mortuary, all the mortuary, remember they have shelves, right? Each shelf, one body.
right,
They're
right.
putting 2 or 3 bodies in one shelf, all right? And not only that, they have leased all the meat storage, storage, cold storage, right? They rent them all for bodies. So this whole just waiting for crematorium, 200,000 bodies in the freeze. Luckily, it's winter, waiting for crematorium. This is how serious it is. So, and Beijing has the best medical facility in the whole country. Anywhere, Shanghai and Beijing are the best. And outside Shanghai and Beijing, anything can be double or triple the rate of death. So this is a human disaster. Of course, politically, we don't feel bad for such an evil regime to have problem, but we are also human beings. People are dying, mostly elderly people. All right. So from a humanitarian point of view, of course, we must sympathize with them. But from a political point of view, this is a bankruptcy for the communist regime. There's no question. Xi Jinping is out of control. Everybody's parents, never mind you're a soldier, you're a policeman, you're a party member, or you're a civilian, or you're a farmer. Your grandparents, all the grandparents died the same way. And all the feeling are the same. I'm sure Indian people are the same. Elderly, most important, respected, and you have a bloodline. And the kids, all right, today these are so-called single child. Most people you meet today in China are single child. So they
Yes,
have
yes.
actually six elderly parents too, right? And 4 grandparents at least to bring them up when they were kids.
Right,
They were spoiled.
right.
They were spoiled rotten. They were spoiled rotten. But on the other hand, when they were spoiled rotten, you also have a huge feeling of
Affection,
affection to the
yeah.
elderly. It goes both ways, all right? For us, we think these kids are spoiled. But on the other hand, they feel very sentimental to their parents and grandparents. It's a very serious thing. Let me tell you, Serene, it's over. CCP is over. So this year is very serious because so many things were happening. You look at America, already animosity from India, even Pakistan, even Iran is having problem with China. They run out of money to keep the others happy. So even the Philippines, they just gave US 4 more base out from 9 to 13. And then the naval secretary is visiting Japan and Korea. So that the NATO secretary, so they're going to all gang up around China, containment and isolation. This is the weakest point of the 100 years